Well, good morning. Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. How are you all today? I want to do a special one, pretty much directed to the ladies, but there's a lot of information in here that men will find interesting too. If you're comparatively new to firearms, or even if you're not, because a lot of times when I have taught people about firearms, even those who have been involved for years and years and years come away and say, well, I have a different idea now than I did before after listening to you. So I want to cover some things on this. And it's great. We have more and more women understanding the importance of being able to protect themselves with firearms. You know, they really are the great equalizer. And as I always say, preparedness is accepting the responsibility for your own welfare and carrying and the possible use of firearms is elemental in that it's a matter of protecting your life. So this comes about as a result of someone who asked me a question the other day about women, specifically what firearm would I suggest for women. So I'm gonna give you my answer on that and give you a little more information so that you understand what my opinions and my answers are based on. If you're new to me, just a little bit about me so you'll understand why I have these opinions. I was a police officer and a deputy sheriff, did years undercover narcotics and organized crime, uh, worked in fugitive apprehension, did private contracting and corporate security work, and I've carried a gun for 49 years now. I've carried all kinds of guns in all configurations, and my opinions come from that experience, not from something that read in a magazine, which unfortunately is the source of much of the information you'll see on YouTube and elsewhere. The information that I use to form my opinions as to the effectiveness of calibers, which I'll talk about in a minute, comes from my own experience on what I've seen on the street, in emergency rooms, and in autopsies. Not from some report that's trying to push or detract from one particular caliber or another. So that's it in a nutshell. Now, you ladies and anybody else, and I don't mean to put aside any men who are listening to this, because I have had a lot of people, a lot of guys who after having carried for years and years, and then when I talk to them about certain things, they change their mind. Okay, and that's because they've been the victim of kind of marketing. There's a lot of marketing that goes on in the gun world. Okay, and people latch on to a particular opinion, and falsehoods become truths as a result of them passing through the truism spectrum. And what I mean by that is there's just a lot of junk information out there about firearms. And one person will start saying something, and somebody else will repeat it, and somebody else will repeat it, and all of a sudden, or pretty soon, over a period of time, enough people are saying it that if you say something different, you're wrong. In their opinion, it becomes a truism simply as a result of it being repeated so often, and that doesn't make it true. So I want to warn you about that. There are far more people out there now. Now, when you listen to me, and you'll hear other people say different things, you make your choice. But I suggest you choose what I'm going to tell you, because there are far more people talking about firearms that actually know about them. It's a subject that is interesting to many, and so they will read all the magazine articles that they can find. You know, it's kind of like getting your diet information, your nutritional information from the magazines at the checkout stand, right? It's very much like that, to be honest. People have a tendency to think that if it's written down somewhere, it makes it true. Well, if you're an adept or an expert in any situation, pick up a magazine that talks about your field and see how close they get it, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. It doesn't even come close. And too many people get their information from, like I say, from magazines, things that they read, or the kid behind the gun counter at the sporting goods store, who also has gotten his information from a magazine. And as a result, people have become misled en masse over certain things. Okay, now with all that said, and that was important, you know, it was important that you understand that maybe everything you've heard isn't so. So I hope you'll listen to me now, because I'm going to tell you things that are going to make a difference as far as your safety and your ability to provide safety and security for the ones who depend on you. I took my 12-year-old daughter over to the range the other day, last week, for the first time in her life. She had never shot a gun before except for pellet rifles in our basement range. And she did fantastic. Now, the reason that I'm telling you this is because I'm going to use her as an example to illustrate some of the points I'm going to make. She shot, or maybe I should back up here. When I ask people, or when people come to me and they say, they tell me that they've become interested in starting to, to buy a gun, to carry a gun, to get their concealed carry license or permit and all this. One of the first things I ask them is, okay, that's great. And for my own, because it's just kind of a research that I do, I ask them, what are you thinking about getting? And almost always they will say, I would say 80% of the time, I'm going to get a 9mm, and I think I'll get a Glock. Okay, well, the first is a poor choice. The second is not necessarily a poor choice. I have nothing against Glocks except that they're overpriced, and I don't like their marketing methods. But other than that, they're good, dependable guns. And the reason that people say that they think they want one is because that's all they've heard about. You've heard Glock, 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 Glock all through the years. I am not a fan of Glock. Okay, there are plenty of other striker-fired pistols out there, and if you don't know what that means, it doesn't matter. There are plenty of other pistols out there just as good for less money, and so that's why I think it's silly to spend too much money on anything. And there are some excellent weapons out there by Smith & Wesson and Springfield Armory and others that are every bit as good as a Glock. So do your research. In a week or two, I'm going to do a second kind of a follow-up for this video. And I'm going to lay out a whole bunch of guns, for a whole bunch of pistols for you to see. That brings up something else here I'll talk about. And compare, and you can kind of see the differences between them. But that's going to take, another 30 minutes, and I'm going to use most of my time on this, kind of laying out the basics for you on selecting a proper firearm. So I will show you that. So come back, in a week, or make sure you subscribe so when it comes out, you'll hear about it. Hang on, have a second. Somebody's calling me. Okay, sorry, somebody wanted me. I had to answer a question. The first thing to realize is that you want to carry something that's effective. Okay, you will hear certain things said that, well, in promoting smaller guns like 9mm, and that doesn't mean the size of the gun. Maybe I should back up here. The caliber of a round describes how big it is, the diameter of the bullet itself, or the round. In some cases, the diameter of the bullet's a little bit different than the round. I'm not going to get into all that. It simply describes how large the bullet is, for the most part. Okay, the very, very bottom that I would suggest for, or the lowest, the smallest that I would suggest for to have any chance of being an effective self-defense round is a 9mm or a 38 special. Okay. When I first went on, we carried 38s, and then I soon went up to 45 autos, if that matters to you. And then other things. There are other effective rounds I'll talk about in a minute. These are the very least, and they're both about the same caliber. The 9mm is an auto round, auto loader, and the 38 special, for the most part, is a revolver round. That doesn't really mean anything, but I just want to say those are the very lowest. Those are the smallest bullets. Many people are told, many people getting into it, especially women, now even men, are told that that you want a 9mm because it's easier to handle than the larger calibers like 40 or 357 mag or 45 ACP, which means automatic Colt pistol. Okay, the big 45s. That's the first fallacy. The second fallacy is that the 9mm is just as effective as the 40 or the 45. That also is a fallacy. Now, does it mean that it's never effective? No, it doesn't mean that it's never effective. It means that it's not as effective as the larger calibers. What you're relying on to stop a threat is essentially tissue damage, which results in blood loss. Okay, simple as that. The larger the diameter of a projectile, the more tissue damage you're going to get. That's simple. And that should be easy to understand, but it's lost on too many people. People will say that those who have fallen into this 9mm situation, they try to get all women to carry 9mm or small or 380 or something like that. My gosh, don't even consider those. They'll say, well, the the improvement on 9mm ammo it has improved so much over the years that it makes it just as effective as the larger calibers. Well, that they seem not to understand that there has also been improvements in the ammunition in larger calibers. See, there have been improvements in 40 and in 45 and in 10mm. I don't suggest that most of you go to 10mm. That's a monster of a gun. And while it may be the most effective among the calibers that we're talking about, it's not that much more effective than, say, a 45 ACP. So we'll kind of keep that off to the side for now. So the people that say that 9mm you want because it's effective and because it's easier to handle than a 40 or a 45 are wrong on both counts. It can be effective. You will hear some people say, and there might even be some, I'm sure there will be somebody come on here and say, but shot placement is what it's all about. Shot placement. If you hit them in the right spot, you'll take them down. Well, that's true to an extent, and if that, then a 22 will kill somebody if you hit them in exactly the right place. But these people, you can tell that these people who say those things have never been in a gunfight, probably never seen a gunfight, probably never know anybody who's ever been in a gunfight. And so they have this idea that they're going to be able to place their shots exactly where they want them when they're under attack from somebody with a gun. And I try to tell them, and you will understand, guess what? Your shot placement, if somebody, meaning where you hit them, well, I'm going to shoot them right between the eyes. Okay. Well, you might be able to do that over at the range when nobody's shooting at you and you have all the time in the world to get your sight picture and your sights lined up and the lighting's good and the footing's good and all that. And you might be able to drill him right between the eyes. Chances are you won't. You know, go to the range and you'll find that it's not that easy to hit where you want to with a pistol. Unless you're shooting government ammo, by which I mean you work for the government and you're running thousands of rounds a month through your pistol. Then you get pretty darn good. So this idea of shot placement is everything, while true, is extremely misleading. Because if you ever need to use your weapon, your adrenaline's going to be up. You're going to be running through the confusion fear loop that I talk about. And they're going to be moving. They're going to be shooting at you, which is going to, guess what? When somebody's shooting at you, you have a tendency not to, well, some people will just stand there and freeze. But it interrupts your concentration. May I say that? Can you imagine? I mean, think about that for a minute. Somebody's shooting at you, and do you think you're going to stand there all calm, cool, and collected and place your shot exactly where you want? No, you're not going to. What you're going to do is you're going to try to shoot for center mass, meaning right in here. You're going to try to put as many shots in there as you can, and you do it in order to stop the threat. Okay. And here's another one of those things that people have a misunderstanding about a so-called kill shot. Yeah, there are some things, kill shots in certain areas, And if you're a professional assassin, or if you have all the time in the world, or like I say, if you shoot thousands of rounds a month, you might be able to put it there. The average person is not going to put it there. And I'm not even going to say where those things are because it's stupid to think about. Um, and you'll get somebody come on here and say, well, I want to put them such and such. Well, that guy's never done it. Okay. So you want to put, and so you don't shoot to kill necessarily. You shoot to stop the threat. And you stop the threat by doing enough tissue damage in that opponent, as it were, in the attacker, that'll make him either have a devastating immediate effect, or to have enough blood loss, or to create enough pain, or to break a bone, or to uh, compromise the ability of him to continue to move. Let me put it that way. And you'd be surprised how many rounds a person can soak up and keep on moving. They really can, especially 9mm. I mean, there's that famous video that I don't know if you can still find it on YouTube or not, where a guy was mad at his lawyer after court and went out and shot his lawyer. I mean, they were within 6 feet of each other repeatedly with a 9mm, and you couldn't even tell that lawyer was hit. Okay, so that's why you want a larger caliber. You want a minimum of 40 caliber, and preferably 45 caliber. Now, we get to the second thing on which most people are being misled, and that is, but those guns are hard to handle. Okay, this is why I started by telling you about taking my the young'un across the street and the airplane above. It's the sounds of Sunday morning. They're going to church. We have church later. And somebody flying their aeroplane for fun, probably. Yeah, it looks like just a second. Let me take a sip. Okay, so people will say, well, those bigger guns are hard to handle. So this is why I was telling you that I took my 12-year-old over to the range, and she didn't shoot a 9mm because I don't have my 9mm, because I don't believe in 9mm. Okay. She took it over and she started shooting with my 40 caliber Smith & Wesson SD. Did extremely well with it. Never shot before in her life. Didn't. It's a big gun. She's 12 years old. You'll hear people say, well, find a gun that fits your hand. I disagree with it. Now, don't get something that, if you have really small hands, don't get a big gun. You're not going to be able to do it. But don't pay an inordinate amount of attention to, well, this really feels good. Don't worry about that. Get a gun that's effective and large enough, and then adapt yourself. Learn how to shoot that gun. Okay. So anyway, it's a big gun, and she's 12 years old. Like I said, she shot it fine. She handled it fine. The first shot that she took, the recoil surprised her. She went, looked at me, and now she knew what was coming up, right? And then she just started putting them down there. And I have a certain way that I train. There's no reason to get into that, but she came along very quickly and very well. And then I gave her my 45 caliber Smith & Wesson Shield, which is a 45 caliber, but it's a smaller profile pistol. She did very well with that. Then I gave her the Big Daddy 45 Springfield Armory, the one that I often carry. Springfield Armory 1911 government model. I mean, it's a big horse. It's a 5-inch barrel auto, and I love it. I've carried a 1911 since I was 21 years old. Yeah, 21. That's when I bought my first one. And those are the smoothest shooters you can find. As a matter of fact, my wife prefers shooting that big old thing. You know why? Because the weight of the gun gives it softer recoil. It's almost like a push, whereas you get the smaller guns or the smaller calibers, and they get like a kind of a snap to them. And here's where having a smaller gun is not necessarily what you want. You want a gun that is going to make it pleasant to shoot, so that you will shoot it, so that you'll practice with it, and so you'll be used to it, and you will carry it. And if and when you ever need to use it, you'll be comfortable with it, and you'll be able to hit what you shoot at, even when you're confused and scared and everything like that. You want a gun that is comfortable enough for you to shoot to where it becomes a part of you. Okay, so when you're going through all these mental gymnastics that happen, and emotional gymnastics in a gunfight situation or a self-defense situation, you're not trying to get used to your gun. Okay, so she did very well with that. So I've covered the two things that that so many people are misled by so many people who don't know what they're talking about. Okay. I know that upsets a lot of people when I say that, because they've read all the magazines and they believe it. No, if you have been like I say, if you have had the opportunity to be in emergency rooms and seen the effects of the different rounds of, different calibers, you would never carry a 9mm. If you've had the opportunity to go through an autopsy, which occasionally we had to, and I had friends who were medical examiners, and we'd talk a lot about it. Nope. You would never carry a 9mm because you see of the more devastation of the larger calibers. It's just as simple as that. To use one of our Patreon members the other day in response to something we were talking about like this, said, "Hey, if you had a choice of me hitting you in the chest as hard as I could with either a pool cue or a Louisville Slugger, which would you choose?" That's right. That's the difference between a smaller caliber like a 9mm and a larger caliber like a 40 or 45. Exactly right. And you'll get some people saying, "Well, but it's penetration that's important." Well, it's energy that's important. It's expended energy into the tissue that's important, and it's simply a matter of you all remember the old E equals mc squared, right? Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. Well, that's right. Mass has a lot to do with it. It's not just speed. So if you have a smaller bullet traveling at 1,400 feet per second, or less than that usually, and you have a larger bullet traveling about the same, which one do you think is going to do more damage? It's going to be the larger bullet. You know, I also say, I use the example, we're rebuilding a deck on the back of our house, and I said, if you're going to build a deck or if you're going to build a house, do you want to use a little tack hammer, or do you want to use a full size hammer? Well, I don't. You might be able to get the job done with a tack hammer. You're going to have to hit each nail about 50 times as opposed to 5 times with a regular hammer. So you might be able to get the job done eventually, and that's the example that I use. That's why the people will carry the 9mm because they say, I like the increased capacity because the bullets are smaller. You're able to get more in a magazine, and that's the thing that goes in the butt of the gun that has the rounds in it. I'll say something else too. I'm going to throw this in. Hopefully, I'll give it. You will also find these firearms purists that just love to get all entangled with the terms. They like to show how smart they are or think they are by making sure that they correct people on certain terms. I had a person that made a statement on the Patreon channel just yesterday, and she talked about the clip in her gun. Now, the thing that goes in the butt of the gun is called a magazine, but you know what? It's not a big deal if you call it a clip. But some people will get all upset. That's not a clip, it's a magazine. Years and years and years ago, when I was young, everybody called them clips. Did you know that? Yeah. I'm saying that to the person that's about to say, it's a magazine. If you don't get wound up with these guys. These are hobbyists. These are not professionals that want to get all entangled in those kinds of things. Another thing is when you call a pistol, they will say that there's a difference between a revolver and a pistol. There's not. It's only something that's come along later in life later in the years, so that people have a tendency to call autoloaders, what people call automatics, uh, pistols, and others revolvers. The term pistol comes from the old pistola, Latin or French or I forget what, pistola, which means handheld firearm, one to be used to fire from the hand. The old pistoleros weren't using 1911s or Glocks. They were using revolvers. They were pistols. See, so don't let these people who like to try to act like they're so smart about firearms. Don't let them bother you. Yeah. So anyway, getting back to this, a lot of people want to carry the 9 millimeter because they can carry more rounds in the magazine. Well, that's fine if you intend to miss a lot, I guess. But practice, you don't miss that much. But even at that, for instance, in the many of the guns that are available in both, and but what by that I mean many of the models that are available in both 9 millimeter and 40 caliber, the difference between the magazine capacity is minimal. Okay, for instance, in the SDs, the magazine capacity in the 9 I think is 16, if I'm not mistaken, 16. Right? Magazine capacity in the 40 caliber is 14. At that level, if you've already expended 14 rounds, two more is probably not going to make any difference. Okay, so I would much prefer to have 14 rounds of a larger bullet than only two more rounds of a much smaller, less effective one. Okay. Now let me say that I will probably be removing, and I'm honest about this. People get all upset about me removing comments. I don't care because they're wrong. Here's why I will remove a comment. If somebody comes on and tries to make a case for the 9 millimeter, blah 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 blah, and they don't have anything to base it on compared to what I've just told you, I will remove the comment, and they will say, you just don't like it when people disagree with you. No, I don't like it when you mislead people and you're wrong. Okay, and nobody knows you. I don't know you. I can tell by the comments of most of these people that come on that they don't know what they're talking about. Again, that they have learned what they think they know out of gun magazines, and talking with their friends who also read gun magazines, and listening to YouTube channels who got their information from magazines. Okay, or shooting in ballistic gel. You're never going to be attacked by anybody made out of ballistic gel. It's important to get your information, or hopefully it'd be nice if you got it from your own experience. That's the best. But that means you have to go out there and do lousy things. Most people don't want to do this, so make sure that the people you're listening to actually know what they're talking about, and arrive at it as a result of their own experience and judgment. So then, when picking a gun, get one that is, number one, um, of an effective caliber, meaning 40, 45, 357. Basically, that's it. I mean, you don't get up into the 44s and 41 mags and 10 millimeters if you're just starting out. Those can be very difficult to handle. These others are not difficult to handle. I don't care if you are a woman, a small man, a child. Do you remember me telling you about my 12-year-old daughter that did just great with the 40s and 45s over at the range? She did fantastic. Somebody also will come on and say, but the FBI moved to the 9 millimeter. You know why they did that? Because they were hiring a bunch of agents. First off, they were hiring a bunch of female agents, and then they were hiring agents who were males, but I wouldn't consider necessarily men. And they were having a hard time handling the 40s. And so they went to a 9 millimeter because the FBI guys couldn't handle it. If my 12-year-old daughter can handle it, how come they can't handle it? Well, but it's easier for a follow-up shot because it has less recoil. BS. BS. That's wrong. So get a firearm. Don't get it too big. You don't need a humongous one. You want to be able to conceal it. Depending on how you dress, you're going to be able to conceal it. Whether you conceal it on your person, whether you carry it in a bag, a purse, or whatever, don't let that, if you do carry it in a bag or a purse or whatever, realize that it's not going to be immediately available to you many times. And don't let that bag or purse out of your hand. Okay, you never want to put it down. If you do that, you are responsible for any gun under your control. And if you let it get beyond your control, you're still responsible for what it does. So don't let it out of your hand. If you carry it in a purse and you're leaving don't keep it zipped tight, and you're walking out to your car at night after work, you walk with your hand in that purse alongside that gun so that if you need it, you're not looking in your purse for it. You simply bring it out. Now, I'll do another one probably on the Patreon channel, because a lot of this gun stuff I don't cover on YouTube, but I was going to want to do this. How are we doing on time? Oh, I better conclude this. I only have a couple minutes. So realize, don't fall prey to what these people tell you. 9mm is a sub-effective round. Go 40 or more. Don't be afraid that you can't handle it. You can handle it. Find a gun that does fit your hand well, but don't go in search of the one that feels perfect. You get used to the gun. Okay? And you can do it. You are fully capable of doing it. The woman who asked me the question said, well, I'm kind of scared of a gun, but I'm more scared because I have 2 kids and I need to take care of them. I'm more scared of not being able to depend on them. Fear comes from not understanding something and not feeling that you have mastered something. So simply get it and practice. Take classes or find somebody, call your sheriff department or your police department. Is there somebody there who could teach me to use a gun properly and give me, the benefit of your experience and such as that? Do that. Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a lot of people out there teaching gunfighting who have never been in a gunfight. Okay, and they, just realize that. Okay. All right. Well, I hope that that's been helpful. I'll do a follow-up on this in about a week, showing a whole lot of different guns. I might just do that on Patreon. I'm not sure. If you're not with me on Patreon, the link is down below. It only costs you $1 a month, and you get a whole lot more content than you do on YouTube. So I'll put it down there. So I'll be doing that one, showing a whole wide variety of pistols that I suggest you choose from. And I hope you come back for that one. So anyway, as we always say, we prepare well today in order to live well. I put up the wrong mug. I thought I was using the other mug. We prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Prepare well today, and by preparing to be able to defend yourself and those who depend on you. And a firearm is, it's a choice of last resort. But when you are at the last resort, you need to have that choice. Okay? You all have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.